So tell me, how are you feeling about the new Lord of the Rings show?
I feel optimistic. I don't know any like I don't know. We haven't seen anything of it yet, right? So like, who knows? It could be a bad thing, but I don't know. I've heard that the Wheel of Time show they made isn't exceptional, so it's not a great sign. But I don't know. I'm always on board. Look, I lined up for every Star Wars movie. I'll line up for this too. Like, I'll be there. I'll watch it for sure.
Do you have any concern that it's going to be like a bunch of fan service over and over again, like some of the more recent Star Wars and Marvel things have been? Where they're just like, hey, remember this character? Remember this character? Remember this thing? It's
maybe.
the Death Star.
The one nice thing is that they really can only do that with elves characters. So like, and there aren't that many super central elf characters, right? So like, they can't do that too much. You know, like none of the humans were alive back then, and the elves that were is like four characters that are actually significant in the movies that we're familiar with, right? So I think I'm not too worried about it.
I'm hoping there are nice cinematog. Hold on, let me take this from the top.
Cinematographic.
Why did you take it from me?
So I didn't know what word you were going for. I
hope there are really pretty landscape shots.
Yeah.
Like, I want to see some nice footage of New Zealand.
Yeah. I will say, the Hobbit movies are not my favorite, but there was that one scene, I think in the first one.
Oh, where he's jumping through the air on falling rocks?
No. Oh, no, that's the third one. I did not like that scene. No.
That's physics.
I was going to say, the scene in the first one where they're in the Mirkwood, and he goes to the top of the really tall tree, and he like sees above it, and there's all these like cool, I think they're butterflies or something. I haven't seen it since it came out, but there's like a really cool scene where he's just like, it's like wondrous, and there's like all these magical looking butterflies and stuff. Like, it was pretty cool. And then they fight a bunch of spiders, so it's a little spooky, but
I never like it when movies decide they need to put spiders in.
Well, I think it was in the book, so I don't think it was.
I never like it when books decide they need to put spiders in.
That's true. Chamber of Secrets? Ugh.
That one's maybe the worst.
Return of the King? Ugh.
Bad. Spiders.
So bad. Though, fun fact, Shelob is actually in the Two Towers book, even though she does not appear in the Two Towers movie. She appears in Return of the King.
What does she do?
Well, those movies are famously quite accurate. So basically what she did in the movies. Almost kill Frodo.
But she wasn't in the second movie.
She's in the third movie.
But what does she do in the second movie?
She's not in the second movie.
What does she do in the second book?
The part with Shelob in it in the second book is in the third movie and not the second movie.
Oh, famously accurate, huh?
All right. Enough out of you. They also see Boromir's dead body in the beginning of Two Towers and not the end of Fellowship. So what you gonna do? So I'm excited for the show. I am. I think it'll be really cool. I'm always game for more Lord of the Rings stuff. Hopefully they'll have some cool physics in it too.
Yeah, and then you can talk about that and not just buoyancy.
Yeah.
And speaking of physics, hello everyone and welcome to the Reference Frames Podcast, the only podcast out there where we seek to teach you physics through the medium of pop culture and all your favorite movie scenes. My name is Ian. This is my good buddy and Lord of the Rings nerd, Will.
That's me. Lord of the
What
Rings
we do in
nerd.
this podcast, Will take us to a little theater of the mind using a popular scene or book, or we've even done sports before, that highlight a cool physics principle that you can use in your everyday life, or maybe you can't use in everyday life if it's something like the history of lasers throwback. And that way you'll be able to use it and apply it in your own life. It'll be super fun and you're going to love it. We're going to have a great time. And we're going to kick it off right now, right here.
Yeah.
What we usually do is start with any corrections. Anytime we've gotten something wrong, people tweet at us. They tell us what we've done wrong. However, we only have 19 followers on Twitter, so that's not a huge sample size. And this week, we also have no corrections.
Nice. Last week was Pressure, right? With the alien scene?
That is correct. I went back and watched that scene. Yeah, boy, they really just nailed the tension, didn't they?
Oh, yeah. Do you see why I kind of wanted to watch it after that? It's like,
Yep.
I kind of get it.
You know what? I want to go back and you got anything you want to mention from?
There's a slight correction I might put with the question of what happens if it were filled with water. I upon further reflection, I think the way I described it probably wouldn't be how it would go, like a milk jug, if you recall, it would like glug, glug, glug. Yep. I don't think it would glug out. I think it would just explode out. I think the water would just basically vaporize and just go flying out the airlock, just like everything else would. I don't think you'd have this bubble of vacuum coming in.
It'd be kind of cool, though.
It'd be really cool. We should go test it. Just fill the ISS with water and then, vent it.
Alabama's got an ISS that's already underwater.
What? What?
That's how they train astronauts.
Oh, really? In Alabama?
Yeah, it's in Huntsville. That's where they have a lot of the space stuff.
Oh, interesting.
Boom, fun fact. I know that because I got a friend and coworker who is from Huntsville.
There we go.
Yep.
Correction zone in the rearview mirror.
Adios, correction zone. Now, Will, would you like to take us to a theater of mind? Everyone sit in your comfiest chair and prepare for...
Get the popcorn.
Get the popcorn and prepare for the scene.
All right. The opening credits play over a black screen. The only sound, that of a rhythmic ticking noise. The ticking noise builds and multiplies as we fade in to a panning close-up of a collection of clocks of various sorts and sizes, all displaying 7:53 in the morning. As the camera pans around the room, it is soon clear that the resident of this house enjoys an eclectic assortment of inventions intended to automate much of their morning routine. Unfortunately, the occupant appears to have been absent for some time, as evidenced by the large mound of uneaten canned dog food slopping out of the bowl on the ground and the severely burnt toast in the automated toaster. Another can is soon opened by a mechanical arm and dumped atop the wet mound of dog food. Our eyes are taken away from this unappetizing sight by the front door opening and a youth entering the empty abode, calling out for the missing resident.
Hey, Doc?
The young man remarks briefly on the sad state of affairs in the kitchen, but quickly begins powering on some sort of large machine. Multiple switches are thrown and dials cranked to their maximum setting. Many gauges are shown rising to their maximum values as he turns more dials, including one labeled simply overdrive, all the way to 100. An electrical hum begins to build throughout this process until he inserts one end of a 1/4-inch audio jack into a socket and the other into the socket of a small yellow electric guitar. Zooming out, we see that he has been powering on a colossal speaker, which at this point is giving off a loud ambient buzzing noise. The youth brushes his hair out of his face and strikes a pose directly in front of the speaker, raising a guitar pick high into the air. As the pick glints in the light, he slams it down and strums across the strings, striking a powerful chord. So powerful, in fact, that he is blasted back 20 feet by the sheer power of rock as the speakers explode in a shower of sparks. He slowly rises from the debris of the bookshelf he was flung into, raises his stylish shades in awe, and utters only, "Whoa." All right, Ian, there's the scene. The opening scene.
Doc!
Love that movie. Back to the Future. What are we talking about today? What do you think?
Let's see. There are a few options here.
There are.
I don't know which way you're going to go with it. We could be
Yeah.
talking about just flat out sound. Could be talking about waves. It's an option.
Mm-hmm.
At first, I thought maybe you were going to go with amplifiers. We were going to get really deep into electronics. Talk about ideal op amps and all that. Yeah. LM341s or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
357s. I don't know. We'll get corrected on
555
that.
timers.
Yeah. But I'm going to probably stick with sound. I think you're going to go way simpler. It's just going to be sound, and it's going to be an overview of sound.
That is a excellent guess. You are 100% correct. We're talking about sound waves today and how they work. Nice job, Ian.
Oh, yeah. Unstoppable.
Great job.
Thank you.
All right, so what the heck is this thing we know of as sound? A little more complicated than you might think. So worth pointing out, this is very connected to what we talked about last time with pressure. So you might want to listen to that before you listen to this one. They're very interrelated. Or you might want to listen to that one after this one because, again, they're very related. So first, I think it might be most helpful to talk about it with respect to how sound is made. And we're going to mainly talk about it in the context of sound in the air, but the principle is true for in water or in any liquid or in even solids like the earth. So first off, for sound in air, a reminder from last week that air is made up of a bunch of atoms and molecules all bouncing around, right? full of all these gaseous molecules. So in that context, sound generally is caused by vibrations of things in general. So if something is vibrating, that means it's moving back and forth, right? So each time an object moves one way, right, it is smacking all the air molecules that are in its way, right? If something moves to the left, there's a bunch of air that's it's going to be moving into, slamming those things off in the direction it's moving. Those molecules that it bopped out of the way are then pushed, shoved into a bunch of other molecules that were just sitting there, just enjoying their time, bouncing around.
Just hanging out, just having a good time.
Yeah. And so now they're getting crowded by all these new molecules getting shoved into them. And so that means that for that brief moment in time, that little area now has more air than it did before. You see what you just following along, Ian?
Yeah, we push a little bit of air from one spot to another.
Yeah.
It bumps into air, which then pushes more air.
Yeah.
Along the way.
It gets crowded, and then they begin crowding the molecules next to them. They begin crowding the molecules next to them. And it basically is like a domino effect where the air itself doesn't move across the room, but this effect of getting shoved into the air next to it, which then shoves into the air next to it, which then shoves into the air next to it, that effect, like a domino set, propagates. And so what we see is a sort of chain reaction going on, where that first thing, the thing is vibrating, moves, and you get this region where the molecules are being more clustered together, kind of traveling, propagating, in the direction the thing was vibrating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right. And that continues going. And so when this thing's vibrating, right, that means it's not just moving once. It goes back and then it moves it again. And then it moves back and it moves it again. And it moves back and it moves it again. It's a consistent vibration, right?
Yep.
So what that means is we get a series of these higher density, more molecules crammed into a space regions, and that are all propagating one after the other in the direction the thing's vibrating. Following along so far, Ian?
So far, so good for me.
Cool. All right, so that series of propagating high density, low density, high density, low density, high density, low density waves, that is what we refer to as sound waves. So there's a few things that can be different between two different vibrating sources, right? So these vibrating things, they create the sound. You can vibrate in different ways, and that'll create different types of sound. So if a source, the vibrating whatever it is, if it's vibrating back and forth more frequently, as in it's going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth versus back and forth and back and forth, right? The higher frequency of its vibrating, that will create these high density regions closer together, right? Closer to each other, because one will be generated, the next one will be generated quicker than it would be otherwise, right? So basically getting a more frequent high density packets. You can kind of think of it, if you think about the air molecules as being like passengers in the cars, a higher frequency source is sending more, it's like a procession of cars where the cars are closer together versus lower frequencies that, same number of cars, maybe they're spread out further along the road, if that makes sense. And this frequency, the rate at which these pulses are being created by this vibrating object, that's what affects the pitch of the sound that we hear. So that's high and low, high pitched, low pitch. A high pitched one is where it's vibrating quicker. A low pitched one is where it's vibrating slower. Does that make sense to you?
You're telling me that is fewer cars that
Exactly. Spaced out further for the low pitch. Yeah.
In case anyone missed it.
Thank you.
Of course.
So that's why we have Ian here today.
That's what I do.
So that's the rate of the vibration, how quickly the thing's vibrating. But if the thing that's vibrating at a consistent rate, but maybe it's moving back and forth a greater distance, right? So it's vibrating, at some given rate, but it's moving further with each vibration. Then the distance between the regions will be the same, because that's determined by how fast it's, how often it's vibrating. But the amount of air that's being shoved into each of these locations is now bigger, because it's scooping up more air in each of these passes as it's vibrating. And so what that means, you can kind of think of like that. You'll get, higher density in these regions. And you can kind of think of that in sort of passenger analogy as being like a passenger train. So maybe like a Tokyo passenger train at rush hour is when it's vibrating further, because you get more people crammed into this one space, versus that same train at like 3 a.m. or something. There's not as much air crammed into each space. Does that make sense?
So far, yeah.
Cool. And so that how much air is being packed into these, the density being higher for a bigger movement of the vibrating object, that's what affects the volume. So like how loud or how soft a sound is. Cool. So let's talk about speakers then. So in the scene, you had a big speaker.
Yeah.
So what is a
did.
speaker? A speaker, on a very simplified level, is just a big panel that just vibrates, right? So it's a big, flat or conical or however you want to shape it, a dome shape sometimes. It's just a thing that's made to vibrate back and forth. And so when they do that, right, they're shoving this air into these neighbors, making these high density things that then move on, and they vibrate back and forth.
Yeah.
And so the faster it vibrates, so the more often, maybe 50 vibrations per second versus 10 vibrations per second, that'll make it have a higher pitch. And if it vibrates further back and forth in each vibration, that'll make it louder. Sound good?
If you look at like old, I guess not old, but if you look at cartoons, anytime they draw loud speakers, and there's the little black disc in the center of the speaker that always kind of flies out.
Yeah.
That's it, right? Like that's a vibrating little
Exactly.
kind of membrane there.
Exactly. Yeah. So in this scene, then, let's look at this opening scene of Back to the Future.
Yeah.
Right. Marty McFly has a massive speaker, meaning it's got this huge conical shaped disc thing. He's cranked all these dials, he's flipped all these switches. Presumably that's going to make it so the speaker will move more, right? Have a larger distance it'll travel with each vibration, therefore making it louder, because that seems to be the intent that he's going for, making it louder.
Classic.
Yeah. Marty McFly. That scene, by the way, there's so much plot that's revealed in that scene through no dialogue, just the panning of the camera and like the TV news on the show, and then Marty McFly's character.
I think there are like newspapers, aren't there?
Yeah, there's newspapers and there's even a broadcast. You see, like it's excellent opening for a movie. Sets up a lot. But anyway, so he's making it vibrate a lot, a large distance with each vibration by turning all these things up, turning overdrive to 100, whatever that means. So much so that when he strums it his guitar even once, the panel completely detaches from its housing and explodes into sparks, right? So clearly, overdrive should not be turned to 100. And
He's got to stop turning overdrive to 100.
He's really got to learn. And so what happens? He gets blasted backwards, right? So the one question we can ask is, would he get blasted backwards? So
yeah.
This would be helpful for you to watch or listen to the previous episode, because it's all about the whole pressure, more molecules. So when that initial wave that the speaker creates before it explodes reaches Marty, right, there will be more molecules packed in to that region in front of him as it reaches him than there are behind him, because it hasn't reached behind him yet. So that the larger number of molecules there means he's going to be getting hit by more and more molecules. There's a higher pressure on him on his front than there is on his back, which means he will get, as in the movie, thrown backwards.
What?
Right. However,
right.
It's worth pointing out, right, the speaker isn't actually generating any air, right? It's not like a fan. It's not pumping air into the room. It isn't adding any molecules into the room. So that high density region, that's extra air in there isn't coming from anywhere. It's coming from the region directly behind that pulse, which means that the high energy area of that sound pulse is immediately followed by a very low pressure area of that sound pulse, which means when the high pressure meets his front, he should be getting thrown backwards because it's more pressure on his front than on his back. But once it gets behind him, presumably he's not moving the speed of sound, not moving faster than it, so it'll go past him. He'll have a high pressure on his back and that even lower pressure than the normal room pressure on his front, which means he will be getting collided with far more from behind than he is from the front. Then he should feel, immediately after the push backwards, he should feel a very similar push forwards as well.
Whoa.
So presumably, I guess it would just be a big, like a jolt backwards and forwards.
Like whoa.
Kind of shaken backwards and forwards.
Right.
If it's one pulse. If it's like 5 pulses before it explodes 5 times. Yeah. So that's that scene through sound. Does that make sense, Ian? Can I see what we're talking about here?
Yeah. I see what we're talking about here.
Cool. All right, then, Ian. I'm going to ask you a question, the classic question.
Oh, boy. Where do we see sound?
Yeah, can we see sound? Where do we see it?
Supposedly.
Where do we hear sound in the world today?
Well, you mean other than basically everywhere.
That was my first thing I
Basically
wrote, just
everywhere.
all caps everywhere.
It's all over the place. It's one of our core senses sometimes. What's an interesting one? I guess the big one is anytime you see a car that is just bumping,
Mm.
has the big speaker setup,
Mm.
and they crank their bass to the max.
Sure.
You hear that low frequency. Boom,
Sure. And you can even see it vibrating sometimes, like the
see
windows.
it vibrating sometimes. The windows. Sometimes you can feel it.
Mm.
That's a big one. I think that everyone
Yeah.
has seen the trope of, at least.
Yeah. And the low frequency, right? The fact that it's so low, right? The reason we see it and feel it is because usually vibrations are so fast we can't really perceive them. But in that case, it's slow enough where you can actually, the eye can pick out the vibrations. In fact,
Wild.
the typical human hearing range goes anywhere from, you can hear a sound, like a speaker, for example, that's vibrating around 20 times a second. That's about the lowest frequency, about the slowest it can go that we can still hear it. And it goes all the way up to roughly, for young people, 20,000 vibrations a second, which is obviously way too much for us to ever perceive.
Yeah.
So 20 times a second, we can still visually even see it. And below that, we can maybe still feel it, but we can't actually hear it.
What do you have written down in your examples? I'm curious.
Sure. Yeah. Well, so there's a few, human speech, right? Anything that makes noise, right? That's our vocal folds, right? Are vibrating up and down, pumping these sort of oscillating or, alternating pressure waves, right, out of our throats. So really any kind of speaker or, musical instrument or whatever. But one cool one, a neat one that I think is just really cool is, have you ever heard of acoustic levitation, Ian?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
But why don't
really
you
cool.
explain to the people that haven't?
Sure. Yeah. And I have a link for a really cool video that kind of explains it and shows it, and it's really fascinating. I think you should also click on the link. It'll be in the description somewhere. It's just really cool to watch. But the basic idea, I don't want to get into too much physics of it, of the phenomena that helps it take place, which is standing waves. But the basic idea is you have one speaker facing upwards, and directly above it, one speaker pointing downwards. They're kind of facing each other on a vertical direction, and they both play sound at the same frequency. And what that generates is what we call a standing wave. And I don't want to get too into the particulars of it, but the essential idea is that you get instead of waves propagating like you would expect up or down, you get these overlapping waves which actually create standing waves, right? It creates these stationary areas of, in the case of sound, which are pressure waves, stationary areas of high and low pressure that kind of alternate. So what you can get, and you'll see in the video if you click on it, is people can put water droplets or little styrofoam balls, and they can just hang there. And what's going on is you put it in between two high pressure regions. Because if you remember, what pressure does, there's more molecules in that area, so they're colliding with it more often. And so you put it in between two high pressure areas. It's being pushed from above by the high pressure area. It's being pushed from below by the high pressure area, and they both kind of like squeeze it and hold it in place, just as if you picked up something in your hand and you were squeezing it between your two fingers. And you can get a whole series of these because it creates a bunch of these little areas. And you can see in the video a whole sequence of like little styrofoam balls, little water droplets, all just in a line vertically. They just stay there. It's really cool.
That is really cool.
Yeah, super cool.
I guess that opens up a whole world of sound, doesn't it? Like maybe even sounds that we can't so much hear.
Yeah, that is hypersonic, so it is beyond our range of hearing, beyond that 20,000 times a second. Yeah, supersonic.
And what would you say about ultrasonic?
That's the word, ultrasonic.
How do you feel about that one?
Even better. Do you know what the opposite is, where it's below 20 times a second?
Infrasonic.
Nice.
Is that correct?
Yeah, you're right.
Oh, how about that?
Just like
Not
ultraviolet,
used for light.
infrared, ultrasonic, infrasonic.
Yeah. I think everyone has heard of ultrasound before,
Mm-hmm.
or its application in medical imaging.
Yeah, perfect. Great example. Talk more about that.
Well, I haven't looked up ultrasonic imaging in a long time, so I don't know exactly the mechanisms for how it works. But basically, there's a handpiece that emits ultrasonic waves,
Which means,
and then I
what is it doing
believe
if it's emitting sound waves?
it is vibrating. And actually, there's like a particular gel that a technician will use in order to make sure that those sound waves make it from the handpiece to the skin without being kind of lost in the air.
Yeah,
The air's very good at absorbing things.
it is.
And once those sound waves make it into whatever they're, looking to image, very commonly pregnant women, but also in my case, one time I had my Achilles tendon ultrasonicked. I don't think they were imaging it. I think it was a therapy of some kind.
Oh, sure.
But basically, those sound waves go in, they contact something, and they bounce back, just like waves want to do, I suppose.
It's an echo, really.
It's an echo.
It's an echo.
It's kind of like a bat.
Yeah.
And then through a series of fancy pants software and algorithms, the handpiece uses those reflections to recreate what it sees, which is really cool.
It's super cool.
Really dang cool.
Super, super cool. Yeah. And actually, you make a great point, right? Bats or echoes in the mountains, right? That's the same exact phenomenon as ultrasound uses. You're measuring how much time it takes between when you say something to when it bounces back to you, or in the case of the ultrasound, the emitter and the detector. Super cool.
On the flip side, that's good for
Babies.
ultrasound. Great for figuring things out. Ultrasound also great for breaking things. There is a. Let's see. I worked on this a long time ago, but I believe that it is called ultrasonic lithotripsy, which is where you can use ultrasound on a kidney stone, and it vibrates it so hard it disintegrates. It's the power of waves in in destruction form.
That's super cool. That's super cool.
Yeah. So we've broached the topic of medical devices. Here I am. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, Ian's wheelhouse.
Yeah. Back to you. What else you got?
One more that, again, similar to the acoustic levitation, maybe a little bit. I don't want to get into the technicalities of it, but the Doppler effect you've all experienced is a sonic phenomenon. I mean, it takes place in any kind of wave, but we often hear it in a sonic case. And that's the case where you have an ambulance that's running towards you on the street. As it passes you, you hear its pitch drastically alter, right? It's like, yeah, it gets lower pitched as it passes you. And that's the case of kind of these waves almost stack up on each other when it's approaching you, and then they actually kind of de-stack when it leaves you. So you kind of experience two different frequencies of the waves, which means frequency, again, meaning pitch. You hear a higher pitch as it's approaching you and a lower pitch as it passes you.
Doppler effect could totally be its own episode.
Yeah, 100%.
It's so cool.
It's really cool. I mean, use it for more than just ambulances.
Yes, that's a fact. And trains. More than ambulances and trains.
So true. Yes, that's kind of the big ones I wanted to hit. Anything else you got, Ian?
No, I don't think so. I think that's pretty good.
All right, cool. We got any questions from the audience then?
Boy, do we have a question that lines up just right from our friend at Analon17.
Analon17? Hold on. This person's asked questions before.
That's right.
I love a good audience member that asks questions before.
You heard it here first, folks. If you ask questions,
I smile.
We'll love you.
I grow a pair of wings every time someone asks a question.
Yep.
It's getting to be a problem. I have way too many wings.
At Analon17 says, how does sound work? Specifically when it is produced by an orchestra.
Well, that is quite in line with this one. So I think we probably covered the first part of that question. Let's cover the second part about how does it work with musical instruments or an orchestra, for example. So, on the basic level, when you're playing an instrument, you're making it vibrate in some way, right? So for a violin, for example, the strings are vibrating, but the actual reason you can hear it is that then makes the actual face of the instrument vibrate. Same thing with a guitar. The strings vibrating, it causes the face to vibrate, and the face is what creates, the actual. That's the thing that's pushing the air and making the waves. So, and then with a tube, it's a similar idea. You're creating this vibration with your lips, and it follows through this tube, and it is amplified and all that fun stuff.
What about a boom whacker?
Boom whacker, exactly. Yeah. Same idea. You're making vibrate by whacking it. Though, I think the interesting thing is that we can tell different instruments apart, even though they're playing the same note, right? But didn't I just say that the main things that differentiate a sound is the pitch, which is the frequency, and the volume, which is just, how much the thing's vibrating. So how are we able to differentiate? That. Yeah, exactly. Great. I'm so glad you asked, Ian. This is really fascinating. But the basic idea is that when you're hearing the same pitch from two different instruments, the reason you're calling them the same pitch is that there's one frequency that is the most prevalent frequency, the loudest frequency you're hearing, and that's what we assign the pitch to of the instrument. But that's not the only frequency the thing's vibrating with, right? These instruments have really odd shapes. Our vocal folds have really odd shapes. And that means when they're vibrating, they're not just vibrating at one specific frequency. There's a great series of frequencies that it's vibrating at. And the combination of these frequencies in different proportions is what's creating the different, what they call timbres or timbres of the instrument, the different sounds that instruments make. Even though the pitch is the same, even if the volume is the same, you can still tell the difference. And that's your ears picking up all the other frequencies that show up. So you might have heard of like the fundamental frequencies, first fundamental, second fundamental, all that fun stuff. That's kind of the whole music theory of it, is how that works. It's really, really cool. Excellent question, Ann Lund. There's a lot more you can say about that. It gets fascinating.
There's so much more to say.
But I don't want to talk about Fourier transforms or the math of it, because we're not a math podcast, we're a physics podcast.
I want to talk one thing about it, though.
Sure.
When you bring an operatic singer into an orchestra.
Yeah, this is the coolest. Go on.
Obviously, an orchestra is going to be much louder than a single vocal performer.
Yeah.
Right? But we can still hear an operatic singer when they're singing with an orchestra. So what's the deal with that?
Yeah, how the heck?
It's because of those down the line harmonics. Did you call them harmonics? Sorry, did I miss a word?
No, I did not bring that up, but that's exactly what I was talking about with these other frequencies that appear.
These other frequencies that Will was talking about are called harmonics, right? The first fundamental, the second fundamental, and so on down the line. It's because the voice has these different fundamentals or these different harmonics that are different than the rest of the orchestra. So your brain, even though it can't hear necessarily the fundamental note that they're singing, it can hear the harmonics, and it sort of fills in the gaps backwards. It's so cool.
And that's what we mean when we say they have an operatic sound to them. Our ears are picking up these much, 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 much higher frequencies. Even though it's not the loudest part of their voice, that's not the frequency we're hearing, because we can't even hear it. Sometimes it's supersonic, or what is it? Ultrasonic. Thank you.
You've used every version.
Yeah, geez. But we can't even hear it necessarily, but our ears can still pick it up, and it kind of, like a domino set, it kind of like allows us to hear the fundamental, which is far quieter than the orchestra. We can still pick it out from the orchestra. It's really cool.
So cool.
Which, maybe on like a cultural or evolutionary standpoint, maybe, we've adapted to being able to hear human voices over ambient noises or something like that. There's probably some evolutionary reason for that, but fascinating
Very
stuff.
fascinating.
Great point, Ian. I'm glad you brought that up.
Thank you. I do what I can. So, folks, if you have a question for us, which would be delightful because we are now out of questions. So if we get no more, we're going to have to pivot pretty hard. You can tweet at us at Podcast Frames. You can email us, referenceframespodcast@gmail.com. And we would really appreciate that, because we're now out. We're at the bottom of the barrel.
Like, look, this is my favorite part of the whole thing, is answering these questions. That music stuff, super cool.
So fun. And he writes the whole script and everything. So to have this be his favorite part is really saying a lot. His favorite part is the part other people write.
Exactly. I hate the parts I do.
If you have questions, if you have corrections, just comments, fan art.
Yeah. Or if you have an example of where sound, an interesting case of where you see sound in the world, or if maybe you have a cool video that showcases some cool sounds. Maybe the guy skipping the rock across the frozen lake or something like that.
Oh, so good. Or the golf ball.
Yeah. Tweet at us. Send us some.
Tweet at us. Love it. And that's kind of all I have to say about any of that. Do you want to do a wrap up? Why don't you go ahead and do a wrap up
of sound, or
of the whole episode?
I was gonna say, oh gosh, the pressure.
Oh boy, he's falling. He's cracking.
I can't do it, Ian. You got to do it,
folks. Thanks so much for coming to this podcast. It's been an absolute treat for me and Will to do.
Yeah, a bucket of fun and a half.
Bucket of fun and a half, all that in a bag of chips, and we hope to see you next time. And if we don't see you next time, maybe the time after that. But until then,
time after time.
Keep it breezy.
The rhythm of the music reaches all of us and unites us.
So now when we hear the world around us, we know that sounds are made when something vibrates. Listen to every sound.